Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jacklin, and welcome to our latest Meet the Management podcast on educators of the future. Education is a hot topic right now, as institutions are grappling the emergence of new technology and under-resourced classrooms. To help us unpack this topic, we have Dr. de Villiers, Head of Education at Stadio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So much, Kia. I'm happy to be here.
Before we get into the main thrust of the interview, can you tell us a bit about your background in education?
Yeah, sure. So my journey in education started in Los Angeles, California, and I think it's very much been shaped by practice rather than theory alone. I started out teaching high school science through a great program in America called Teach for America, and that had me working in schools that were under-resourced and deeply complex for a variety of reasons. And from the teaching role, I moved into a leadership role where I served as a deputy principal and ultimately a school principal in South Central Los Angeles. And after that, I came to South Africa, where I worked for a non-governmental organization supporting no-fee public schools in the Western Cape. That was super rewarding, and I really enjoyed that. While I was teaching and leading schools in LA, I did pursue more formal training in educational leadership, which I got my master's in at California State University, and then also my doctorate at Pepperdine University in educational leadership, administration, and policy. And I think what ties it all together specifically is that I've spent most of my career in classrooms and schools where teachers are expected to do a lot with very little. And those experiences have really strongly influenced my belief that teacher education must be practical and must be context responsive and grounded in the realities that teachers actually face.
It's a very global background, I see. When we talk about the educator of the future in South Africa, what does that actually look like to you?
So the future and the present, the educator must be someone who is confident and adaptable and deeply learner-centered. It's not just about knowing your subject content, although that's obviously very, very important, but it's also about knowing how to read a classroom, how to respond to different learning needs that you undoubtedly will encounter, and how to build meaningful relationships with learners. That's true across the world, but also in South Africa. But particularly in South Africa, I think the future educator needs to be resilient and reflective. Classrooms are changing very quickly, and teachers have to be comfortable with learning and unlearning and adjusting their practice over time. The best part about this job is, how much you can continue to learn from day one in this role until year 25, 30, 40 even. You're always going to be learning, or you always should be learning. But I think teachers absolutely have to see themselves not just as content deliverers, but as professionals that play just the most critical role in shaping society. It's just such an awesome responsibility that we have. And I hope that our teachers can take that on with pride and with gusto and meet the challenge head on.
South African classrooms are often large, diverse, and resource constrained. How should teacher training evolve to better prepare educators for those realities?
It's a very real reality that our teachers are facing. And I think the biggest shift that we need to make is to move the practical experience that our students have earlier and more intentionally to the beginning of the program, because too often we find that students graduate with really strong theoretical knowledge, but limited meaningful exposure to the realities of these large, diverse classrooms that so many of our teachers have. And so I think that the training needs to help future teachers practice classroom management. We need to show them how to differentiate in a classroom that's diverse and large. Inclusive teaching is a huge part of what we do, and problem solving in the real context that they will face. It's not just about talking about them or knowing what you might do. It's actually having the opportunity to do that. And I think the one way that we'll be able to do that is through the strong partnerships that Stadio has with schools in the many thousands of schools that we work with, because we have to normalize that teaching in complex environments is challenging, but it's not insurmountable. And if teachers are properly trained and supported, it's 100% something that they can do effectively and have success with.
Multiculturalism is becoming an increasingly important part of education. What skills will future educators need to effectively teach across different cultures, languages, and socioeconomic backgrounds?
Cultural competence is absolutely key here, and we accept and appreciate the different cultures across South Africa, and we should be proud of that. And I think most of us are. But what'll help teachers going forward and even today, right, is they have to be able to listen. They have to be able to reflect on their own assumptions, which is not easy to do, but is vitally important. And they have to be able to approach the learners and the families in those schools with humility and respect. And that includes being sensitive to the language differences, the cultural norms, and the socioeconomic realities that many of our learners face. And you were able to do that, I think, through strong communication, doing that well, and obviously emotional intelligence. That's huge here. Teachers have to do their best through their communication and through their emotional intelligence to create inclusive classrooms that help learners feel seen and feel valued. And what that is often quite difficult for teachers is that that doesn't mean they have to have all the answers. It's not always possible, but it does mean that they need to be willing to learn from the learners, right? And from the communities within which they teach. Because when they can learn from these people, they are able to adapt their teaching in ways that are responsive to the needs rather than rigid, which is what they might have learned in their tertiary studies.
Especially here in South Africa, there's an abundance of culture.
Exactly. If you can take the time to listen and to really, as I said, check yourself, check your ego at the door and
Yeah.
learn about yourself and be more aware, it'll make a massive difference in your experience in the classroom.
Technology is rapidly reshaping education. In your view, what role should technology play in the future classroom, and where should we still be cautious?
Yeah, so technology has enormous potential in the classroom, particularly around personalizing learning. Each learner is at a different points when they come into the classroom. Some might learn faster on one particular topic and struggle with another topic. So technology can definitely support the teacher in identifying early on in lessons where learners are having success and where they're struggling, and not just as a group, but as individuals. It has to also be used to enhance engagement. Unfortunately, particularly in large classrooms, it's very easy for a learner to maybe unconsciously hide in that classroom. If they're not putting their hand up, the teacher doesn't see them, or they're waiting for someone else to put their hand up so the teacher won't call on them, and that just automatically allows them to disengage. But if we're able to use technology in a meaningful way, then the teacher will be able to get all the learners to engage, know exactly what they're all thinking at that moment, how many of them are right, how many of them are almost right, and how many of them are way off. And then the teacher can adjust what it is that they're doing to support those students and their particular needs. At the same time, I really do believe that technology is not like a silver bullet, right? We have to be cautious about how we use it. It should support good teaching. It should not replace it. The human connection that I talked about previously, the mentorship, the professional judgment that teachers have still matter deeply in education. So the focus on technology in the classroom should always be on like purposeful, thoughtful use of that technology. You're not just using it to use it. You're using it because it serves the learning of what it is that you're trying to teach. It's not driving that separately. So I think I'm very excited about what it is able to do, but obviously we need a lot of support in how to use technology properly or in the best way to support the individual learners that we have.
If you could redesign teacher training in South Africa from scratch today, what is the one thing you would prioritize immediately?
You've got to integrate the theory and practice far more deliberately. I mentioned it previously, but it really is about designing programs where our student teachers are constantly moving between what they learn and how they apply it in real settings. It's one thing to read about a classroom management activity. It's another thing actually trying to implement that classroom management strategy in a class of 30, 40, 50, 60 learners. That's really what I would love to see. I'd also place really very strong emphasis on the mentoring, ensuring that our student teachers, when they go out to schools, are supported by experienced practitioners who are able to help them reflect and help them grow and help them build confidence. I know that that's not always possible out in the field, but our student teachers learn so much from their mentor teachers once they begin their practicals, that it's actually vital for those mentor teachers to know what it means to be a mentor and how to effectively help this student teacher as they begin in their career. Our goal is that our graduates leave these programs feeling prepared for the classroom rather than feeling anxious about the classroom. And there's nothing wrong with feeling anxious about your first day or trying something new, but feeling confident that I'm gonna try something, I'm gonna get it as right as I can. I'm gonna learn from it. I feel proud of what I'm doing here and going into the classroom. And if we can get our students and our graduates leaving the programs feeling prepared for the classroom and for the school environment, then I think we've done something right.
What gives you optimism about the future of education in South Africa?
Oh, there's so much that is to be optimistic about. Our learners, number one, are showing up hungry, ready to learn from our teachers. They've taken the time to come to school in their uniforms and their ties. They've got all their materials and they're ready. And that, I think, is, the catalyst that we all need to meet them where they are. And what's wonderful is what I've seen across the country and the world is the passion that our current teachers and the student teachers have when they're entering the profession. Despite the challenges, I really see that there's a strong sense of purpose, a strong commitment to making a difference, a real difference in someone's life is a very powerful, rewarding experience. So I'm super encouraged by the conversations that I have around improving teacher preparation, around widening access to education, and around doing things differently where the old approaches might not always work these days. And so at Stadio, we have a real opportunity to contribute to that future by adequately preparing our teachers who are ultimately confident and capable and proud to play the vital role that they're going to play. And that, to me, is something worth being optimistic about.
My name is Jacklin, and we encourage you to follow Meet the Management for more insights in the future.